Welcome to Accounting Life with Jotham Ty. Our guest today is Rahul Somani, Executive Vice President of Product and Engineering at Gappify. In this episode, we explore how finance systems, IT, and accounting teams can build strong partnerships through mutual understanding, prioritization, trust, and effective collaboration. Now, our host, Jotham Ty.
Hey, Rahul, welcome finally to the Accounting Life podcast. How's it going?
It's going all right.
Well, we found a great time to pull you in. We just got done, as you know, with our annual SOC audit. So I'm sure you're excited to switch gears and talk finance systems and accounting partnerships.
Absolutely. SOC audit is out of the way.
Yes, once a year, thankfully. All right, well, let's jump in. So the topic for this episode is finance systems and accounting partnerships. Obviously, very crucial to implementing the right tools. And in this environment, there's so many different solutions to choose from. Obviously, from a finance systems perspective, you have a lot of different projects going on. For us in accounting, we're going from one close to another. So I thought it'd be good to ask you a few questions about what you've seen and experienced in that really fun dynamic.
Absolutely. Having been in those shoes for 15 years, it's a great time to reflect on it.
Actually, maybe to start there with your background. So you have supported not only accounting teams, but other functions as well, right? Because I know you have Salesforce experience.
Right. Supported sales, marketing, finance, to a certain extent, engineering for data collection that we can make available to our internal business users to help with billings and overages and whatnot. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sounds like you've been through all functions basically in a corporate environment. But actually, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to start with a question from there. How would you describe partnerships with accounting being different from marketing or sales? I know I'm starting off hot. And that's what I promised to do in this season for this podcast is ask juicier questions. So, how would you describe accounting teams being different from your interactions with other teams? Is it like maybe logistics, like urgency is different, or maybe the same? If the answer is the same, that's great too. But we accountants would love to hear what you think.
I actually think accounting is far more driven and result oriented. Oftentimes when you work with like sales, marketing, or engineering, you like internal IT or the internal needs may not take the highest precedence always because of what their true function is for their end customers. But when it comes to finance, some of these problems are really problematic. And to solve them, not only do they have the thought process and the rigor, but they also want to get themselves out of the manual nature of doing the processes. So it drives them. And as we all know, accountants are very structured, unlike other teams, which often ends up being haphazard, not intentionally, but it's just the nature of what they are doing for the core product versus what finance is trying to focus on is the entire company. So,
let me support that statement by saying if we mess up in accounting, we're going to have our auditors and the SEC on us.
Exactly.
If someone messes up something in HubSpot in marketing, the consequences are not nearly the same.
Right.
So I'm plugging my peeps here, my profession here.
Exactly.
So I think
the data we get from engineering to do overages, for instance, if you're doing usage-based billing and whatnot, if you're off a little bit, the customer may know, may not know, but when that information doesn't get to finance the way they need it, your business could be off. And so the same data can represent two very different tangential pieces of information when it comes to a month-end close or even just your quarterly reportings.
That's a good and also like not controversial answers, though. I'm glad the pivot worked out well. I've got a second question for you now, and I don't think we've really talked about this explicitly between ourselves, and we've been working for so long. What makes a strong finance systems and IT and accounting partnership? And I'll name one that I'll express I appreciate about like partnering with you. Before Gappify, we worked together at Responses, and definitely more so now here at Gappify, which is I think IT and finance system partners who take the time to understand the business process? Like for us accountants, that means like so much. Like what are some of the other qualities along those lines that you think is important to make?
I think what you started off with is definitely the biggest key for internal IT is them understanding the business. Just like they want to spend time understanding how engineering is behaving and what their data might mean for internal purposes, or how to drive sales better by building tooling. I think there's a lot of efficiency gains directly in the finance organization also. So understanding the pain points is probably the biggest barrier that may help or hurt the relationship. Um, Also, not taking finance for granted to a certain extent. Oftentimes, their problems are not as small as other teams, just because of the need is different. But not belittling their experiences or their day to day makes for a good understanding of, like, how camaraderie may work together, and how when you present an idea as an IT person to a finance person, as far as you come genuinely supportive of, like, understanding the overall holistics before just jumping to a conclusion, I think helps in ensuring you hear them, but then you have a plan of how to help execute, because not everything can be done in a day or month or a quarter. It just needs
Yeah.
very deliberate planning and execution.
I'm going to repeat what you said, because I think it's important for our audience too. And I think this is key. I think sometimes like we get turned off in accounting when it's too presumptuous, right? Or like
Yes.
our IT or finance systems partners think that something is like really straightforward and easy, when we know as accountants it's not. So you mentioned,
Correct.
not like undermining the complexity and just like the tone itself. Like it sounds quite important to fostering a strong relationship.
Yep. And just because things can be offshored with more manpower does not mean it should be. So again, understanding those parameters to then helping make the decisions for not only immediate success, but for the future plays a great role in building a relationship. And as far as we're lock and step, most of the other problems kind of just work out when it comes to either resourcing or delivery of specific projects.
Yeah, and it's important to think about all of those parts, because you and I have been back at our responses
Many
day,
of projects, yes.
many projects, and these are like high pressure, like executive mandated deadlines that your team, my team had to work
Everyone.
together on.
What
And
did we do? Like what, 3, 4 systems all at once? Upgrades?
well, I can name them:
Intact to what? Oracle, Coupa upgrade. I think it was
Coupa,
Avalara
expense reports and procurement,
procurement.
Avalara. We did Oracle R12. We were
Uh,
looking at like upgrade
RevPro.
the system.
Uh,
Repro was on the revenue side.
the
So
revenue
yeah,
side. Yes.
oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot we did that.
Yeah. I think there was a tax system in there too. All within like a 2-year period, we're trying to upgrade all this and grow the infrastructure for finance.
Well, and to stay on this track, actually, so the times have changed, obviously, in the last year or two. Teams are definitely um, prioritizing the roadmap on the IT side and not taking on like 10 projects at the same time. Um, what do you think of that practice, and like how would you, as a finance systems leader, kind of think about what to prioritize in those situations where you have a limited team?
Yeah, I think again, it goes back to the same philosophy of understanding what's the biggest burden. Oftentimes, companies will always start with ERP, P2P, revenue systems, just to keep the business running and moving. But those usually, after you knock those out, they're not usually the ones that take up a lot of time. It's the other processes on the accounting side, which have traditionally been, just resource it out. The problem is oftentimes you won't necessarily figure out the minute details that cause the issues when it comes to month end close, or you're doing your filings, right? So the best of breed will still stay.
I want to double down on that, because I think it's easy for people to think that ERP change is like the most critical in their business. But I've heard this from controllers and CFOs that I talk to as well. NetSuites and like these mid-tier ERP systems, and like even the Oracle Fusions, like going to SAP sounds like a nice big jump, but when you kind of break down the details of what works and doesn't work, doesn't really kind of justify sometimes the prioritization that it's given. And
Right.
I'm going to go Homer now, Rahul, but with Gappify, one thing that we've highlighted for our prospects and customers is that accruals is not just done by the GL team, sometimes FP&A, sometimes AP, all the time with vendors or internal business partners.
Correct.
So when you start thinking about the number of people that have to do manual work,
It's amplified.
everything happens in emails and
Yes.
spreadsheets. That's where we hopefully change people's minds and
Absolutely.
prioritizing us as something that is more widely impacting.
I completely concur. And this is also where uh, systems and I think, if you look at the 20-25 year SaaS run that we have had, we're definitely seeing a shift in strategy from customers or even ourselves. When we look at vendors, we want something that's more long-term based, will solve more problems, but we still want the best solution out there. We're not gonna, support a partial solution. We want the solution that will solve not only our current problems, but also think about the future problems that we have not necessarily dwelled into, but they exist.
Yeah.
Oftentimes with ERP and P2P systems, there's an umbrella of things that we expect them to do, and they do those really well, and that's what they're great at. But there's a lot of dirt of problems and situations that we still have to find the right solutions for, which are not covered in those big umbrella buckets.
Definitely. Well, and beyond prioritization, well, what other themes, trends are you seeing? So you and I sit on a lot of customer meetings, right? So we now get to kind of observe the dynamics between finance systems and accounting teams for our customers, and we're on a different we're on the software provider side. But what are you seeing in terms of like the relationships that?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think actually relationships are hitting great strides. Just the last few customers, our customer advisory call conversation that we had a couple weeks back, the great things that came out of it is teams and IT teams have become very product driven, meaning they're not just looking at something as a way to say, oh, we need to just have IT solve the problem. Or they're saying, how are we going to fit this into the paradigm of a growing company? So it's not just about prioritization, it's about ensuring you have a product mindset to drive solutioning, which is very different from how traditional IT used to be performed, because it was always just about, okay, we have a team, we have a problem, let's just go solve it. No, now it's about vendor management. How well does the vendor understand your needs? How are they going to support your future? Are they the best ones to continue to be in a relationship with? Now, this is all the work that IT is doing behind the scenes. Some of it is noticed by finance, some of it is not, but that's okay. That's a relationship that they're formed, to ensure they get the best product, and that IT as a business partner can suffice the needs of finance as their customers. So prioritization, uh, solution being more product oriented, not just point solutions, right? How can they help influence the product journey to fit not only their needs for now, but for the future?
Yeah, I want to emphasize that second point, because that's clearly something I've seen in the last several years too with our customers, which is this product orientation, right? So it's not just about implementing the solution that you bought, but it is how you take that as a starting point and grow not only your company, but your company's requirements, and partner with your vendor, i.e. us, to grow with them.
And to grow with them, right?
I think the outcome of that has been now like product managers or similar roles that are part of finance systems and IT teams, which I have not seen up until the last couple of years.
We have not, yes. And it's not surprising, because eventually it does require a pretty smooth dance to organize everything and make sure you're set up for the future. It's just best of breed does not mean you just get the next best product. There's so much integration going on. You don't want to end up your data in so many different vendors or so many different angles that it starts to cause other issues, right? So this is going to be a huge push, and one that's going in the right direction, I believe.
And it has definitely shifted not only finance systems and IT teams, but accountants too, to be more strategic about how they tackle on automation.
Absolutely.
How that impacts the data that they have to work with.
The part you just said right there, the data-driven decision making, right? It's not just one-sided anymore. Yes, finance is bringing what they feel, but IT is coming prepared with product managers to say, okay, let's diagnose this problem. Let's truly understand what is at stake here, when we make these decisions for the future. So it's gone from, we're spending X hours to, well, X hours multiplied by Y problems equals to Z situations, right? Okay, so let's eliminate and diagnose it the right way. So the product mindset is very helpful, I believe, for IT and finance holistically.
Definitely. We're definitely living in a more strategic world that requires more strategic prowess from across all teams, which
Absolutely.
is, where at least the accounting profession wants to be. So we definitely embrace that. But at the end of the day, though, when we talk about like relationships, it's still about people, right? So partnerships are still about people. I have been like very vocal about just the need to establish like rapport and like just camaraderie with teams outside of accounting.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I would think it's the same. And I recently posted about it on the FP&A side. I posted that, by us in accounting, spending time outside of the close of the FP&A, whether it's lunch or just like learning about each other's processes,
Yep.
that helps so much, I think, with just seeing that people are people on both sides and without the lens of a high pressure.
Absolutely.
Is it the same thing with finance systems and IT?
What you just said there is exactly the way I envision it, right? Like the reason you and I and us in IT at Responses with finance had such great success is because we were often just seeing eye to eye, understanding each other, spending time and understanding problems. But then there also needs to be a lot of trust that what the other side is saying is genuinely, important, not just to push stuff under the rug or not to give it priority. It's just not everything is solvable at the immediate pace that's sometimes required. It just needs more time and diligence and the right prioritization. But it becomes possible when you're lock in step and you're willing to think more as a unit rather than thinking individually about your own success. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of teams, especially IT move, is they're thinking with their stakeholders in lockstep. I think FPN is a great example, right? They take so much care of their budget with their stakeholders. It's because to them, it's the most important part of their relationship is to make sure they provide the most important information and most accurate details. That trust is what becomes the epitome of the success for FP&A with their stakeholders, and subsequently FP&A with accounting is to be able to work lockstep.
You mentioned trust, and as a final question for today's segment, so just building on that really important component of trust, which I think is like fundamental to any relationship. If we in accounting don't trust the judgment or the prioritization of IT, because all we've done is like see each other in Zoom, it's just hard to build it if you just try to do it within the normal course of like your business interactions. So doing a lunch and just talking about, like in our case, back in the day, we talked about basketball, right?
Exactly.
Lakers and Warriors.
Play foosball together, right? Why not?
Yeah. And I think just being able to interact in non-business ways grows that trust.
That relationship and trust. Absolutely.
So the question I was going to throw in there for you to wrap up is, and to enhance this conversation of trust, do you trust that the Lakers and JJ Redick will be this year?
I think the Warriors might do better than the Lakers.
Oh my gosh. Are you sure you want to leave this alone?
It's okay. It's okay. I think the Lakers' glory days are ahead. Maybe not this year, though.
That's a very optimistic way of putting it.
Yes. But no, I think trust is key, but I think trust comes with more friendship. And we had our battles back in the day. We used to agree and disagree, but the important part is being able to move forward as a unit. You're not always going to agree. You're not always going to disagree, but we have to understand each other's viewpoints and then lockstep move forward. I think that's what's critical.
100%. And that's the only way good working relationships really bud and mature. You have to know when to agree and sometimes disagree, and have the trust that everyone has an interest in mind.
Exactly.
Rahul, great conversation. Thank you. We finally got you on the podcast, and we can't wait to have you back.
I'll be excited to be here.
A winning season here with the Warriors.
At least after the first 8 games, yes.
All right. Thanks for joining the
show. Take care,
Jotham.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for stopping by. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want more information, please check us out at Gappify.com. and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.